Good afternoon, everyone. Sharice Jervis Hill here from Events to Remember and PR to Remember with our Coffee with Cher session. I have a treat for you for those that are in the event space. Another one of my event folks. I am happy to bring to Coffee with Cher this afternoon Cameron Toth, CEO of Toth Staffing. Cameron, welcome to Coffee with Cher. How are you this afternoon?
I am doing very, very well. Thank you for having me here. I got my coffee and I'm ready to go. Let's
All
do
right, let's do it. Let's do it. Little cheers.
it. Cheers indeed.
All right, is there coffee in that cup? Is there just coffee in the cup?
Just coffee.
All right. Okay. All right, so let's get started. So, Cameron, first question, I want to start with tell me a little bit about how you got started, how Thought Event Staffing got started. Tell us a little bit about your
Yeah,
backstory.
absolutely. So Toth Event Staffing was founded in 2011, and it was an interesting journey to get there. Why do you want to be an entrepreneur? For anybody that goes down the path of sort of opening up their own company,
Mhm.
is something that is it can be traumatizing in lots of different ways, right? What do you do? How do you do it? I think a lot of people hem and haw about getting started, and so what gets you to that point where you want to do that transition? I just read the book or reread the book, "Who Moved My Cheese," and it
Mhm.
talks about transition and change, and so many of those sort of instances of like, should you get into the race? Do you just sit back and do what you've been doing come up as you're sort of making that decision? And so for me, to understand how I got there, you got to kind of understand like all the way back. So I grew up in New York City. I was actually born in Boston, Massachusetts.
Mhm.
My parents quickly moved down to New York City. My mom quickly got bored of my dad, moved over out to the West Coast. So she moved to California with me as a baby. And about
Mhm.
7 years old, you can kind of imagine what goes through the mind of a 7 year old to make this decision. But at 7 years old, I was like, hey, mom, yeah, I think I'd rather live with my dad in New York City. And so from 7 years on, I was living in New York City with my dad, single child there, when I would go out and spend summers with my mom in
Mhm.
California.
Mhm.
I was the oldest of four siblings. And
Okay.
so that was an experience. And then my grandparents were in St. Louis, Missouri. So I had that sort of continental US experience, a lot of plane rides as a young kid.
Mhm.
My education in New York City was much better than the education I was getting out in California. So I was fortunate for that. And my dad gave me a love of books. So education, my road to love of education and love of getting to know the world sort of started there. But
Mhm.
getting to high school, there wasn't a lot of focus and drive in what I was doing. My dad was a little distracted, declining grandparents. His best friend died. And
Mhm.
so um, fast forward to 19 years of age. I do not have a high school diploma. I did all 4 years, but somehow didn't end up with a diploma because I didn't, wasn't focused getting the things done that I needed to get my diploma. And
Mhm.
I had a child at 19 years of age, so I'm dealing
Mhm.
with that. And so it's a little bit of a sobering experience. All
Yeah.
right, I got to get serious. I got to figure this out. I went after my GED, got into college, but I wasn't seeking mentorship and I wasn't seeking the right financial advice. And I think so many people can sort of relate to that story because I think we've
Yeah.
all probably been there at some point of the sense of like, oh, what am I doing? How do I actually make what I'm doing work financially? Am I doing the right thing on an educational track? Am I
Mhm.
headed the right way? So I wasn't doing college the right way. And so 2 years later, I'm dropping out of college. So I was both a high school dropout and a college dropout. Um, I got into the hospitality industry through bartending. I was bartending on World Yacht, doing cruises around the city, which were a very interesting experience. Got a deep knowledge of bartending because there was every kind of drink you could imagine, including the Galliano bottle, which is if you want to order a sex on the beach up against the wall, that's the Galliano. I mean, everything. I was making blended drinks, so I had really deep root in bartending. I left that job to go do temp waiting and
Mhm.
temp bartending with a company at the time that was called Yippee, which is now, I think, moved into either Amerivents or HMG Plus Transformed.
Mhm.
They're now my competitors on the staffing end of the world. But I worked with them. I went to Manhattanville College in Westchester, so that's how I got introduced to Westchester.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually started working for Manhattanville College. Compass Group owns all these different entities, Flick and Chartwells, and so I started working for that company at Manhattanville College. Moved over to Mastercard,
Mm-hmm.
was food service manager there as well. In the process of all that time, I was meeting my wife, who I've
Oh,
been now married to for 20 years, and we have 4 kids together. So that was
God bless.
a good move. And then I left Mastercard to go work for a small independent company doing a food service director role, which
Yep.
eventually gave me the confidence to start my own company. Little did I know it at the time, but there I was managing the cafeteria. We were doing catering for the building, pantry service, commissary going out to a hedge fund and a senior resident. So I was doing a lot and managing a lot for that small company out of that thing. But at that time, I wasn't getting paid very well, which
Mm-hmm.
is pretty common in the hospitality industry. And there was a lot of work, not a lot of pay. And so I got burnt out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just at that point recently married. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
making some life decisions. So I went and I worked for a company that was doing medical education meeting planning. So I got out of food service altogether. And I was setting up dinners with doctors, paying them $2,000 to speak to other doctors and nurses to sell pharmaceutical drugs for pharmaceutical reps all
Yeah.
over the country. Fast forward to 2009, I find myself in Mexico. My wife is Mexican born, and so we were dealing with immigration paperwork. My company was laying me off at the same time the US government was telling me that my wife, if she was allowed at all, could not come back into the country for at least 12 to 15 months while they were reviewing a single missing document
Oh
from the
my.
thing that our lawyer put together, which is one of those great lessons in life. If you want something done correctly, do it yourself, right? Don't
Oh.
pay somebody $3,000 and expect that it's going to be done right. Make sure that you're really checking things and looking at the rules and going through it. And get a lawyer to get you some advice. Not a bad idea, but don't depend on the lawyer or the accountant. Woo! Don't depend on the accountant to get it right for you. You got to look at your stuff yourself. So that was a big lesson learned. But two big takeaways from that experience. One, I didn't want to go back and work for corporate. I didn't ever want to be in that position again where,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the sort of most challenging point in my life, and this entity isn't going to take care of me, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
the other part was, Cameron, get yourself to a point where you're self-sufficient. You got things where you can sort of control the ebb and flow of your life. I've been involved with a nonprofit called soundbusiness.org for the last 26 years, and I was doing
Mm-hmm.
work during that time for them, but it was a nonprofit. And so even though that's my passion, what I love, I needed to do something that I not only could make money at, but also provide money to the things that I love and create some kind of ability to give back. And so that's what I did in 2011. After they finally let my wife in, thank God.
Oh my
2 children
goodness.
at the time. Like I said, I'm married 20 years now. We have 4 children together. Things are good. We live in Valhalla, New York, and I have an office outside of the home in Valhalla, New York, and it's a beautiful thing. But that was a really tough time, and so that was the foundation for building Toth Event Staffing. And I built Toth Event Staffing based on the idea of how do I make money, use the
Mm-hmm.
skill sets that I have,
Yep.
and create something that I don't have to be working myself all the time. Well, guess what? I send other people out to work and
Mm-hmm.
to profit from that. And I think,
Yeah.
the thing that sort of sets us apart is that we do a great job. And I take all of my experiences and try to provide amazing, detail-oriented service. And we carry that bar at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
Experimented with, adding services, and when those things sort of detracted from what we were doing at that high level, we backed away.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's how we've succeeded.
Wow. So you've just given us so much info. I had no idea, and in knowing you and traveling in the same circles, like I had no idea about your journey and how you got to where you are today. That's pretty amazing. Um, Who Moved My Cheese is a book that often comes up in my
Yeah.
conversations with different entrepreneurs. So for those of you that are thinking about starting a business, definitely pick that up because that is Cameron's not the first person to mention that book, and I remember reading that many moons ago, and it is a really great book. So number one. Number two, I definitely can somewhat relate. I remember when I was young, my grandmother was in South Carolina, and
Mm.
um, we would go back and forth, my cousin Nelson and I. Like one year, he would come to New York, and one year I would go to South Carolina. So I definitely feel like I am very much a North and South kind of girl. So so definitely, and remember those plane rides on Delta when I was little.
And
So
something I think you can agree with this, in the industry that we're in, you have to work with lots of different people.
hmm
I find myself having a little bit more insight and patience into people because of the fact that I've sort of been in different parts of the country and met a wide variety of people. Anytime anyone, I don't care where they're from, because everybody does it, white, black,
hmm
brown,
Yeah.
whatever, right? People tend to put people into boxes. Oh, these
hmm
people are good at this, and this is that type of women are that, or men are
hmm
that. And anytime that type of conversation comes up, and I feel very fortunate that I've had, first growing up in New York City, you just are literally in the melting pot. You see every
Yeah.
kind of race, culture, religion,
hmm
which I've always considered myself, even at those moments in my life where I was very challenged. Having a
hmm
child at 19 years of age is hard and
Yeah.
difficult, and it can feel like the world is against you. But I've always felt fortunate for my circumstances in terms of where I lived and
hmm
where the things that I get to see. And so growing up in California and New York City and seeing St. Louis, Missouri, I got to see people living their lives in different
hmm
ways and knowing that not any one way was the right way. They're just
Yeah.
different and sort of, if this is what you choose to live in a house, this works. If you choose to live in an apartment, this works. Like
Yeah.
one thing is not bad. No,
Yeah, it's
it's
what
not
works
worse than
for,
the other. Yeah.
yeah, what works for each person. So
Right.
definitely, I agree with you 100% on that. And I love that you shared your journey of, dropping out and just the resiliency, right? And I feel like to be an entrepreneur, you must have that resiliency because there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. I talk about that all the time. And there's times when you're up, there's times when you're down, there's times when you're flat. So thank you for sharing your story and being transparent because I do feel like these are nuggets that will definitely help someone else. And that's what we strive for on this podcast. So
Absolutely.
I think you talked about kind of what sets you apart from your competition. So I'll kind of move on from that question. But I do want to talk about I know that for you it's not just event staffing, right? Like you really do a lot more than that. So tell me a little bit more about some of the things that are new for this year, or some of the things that you're kind of diving into. For
Absolutely.
2020.
So, we specialize in your wait staff, your bartenders, your
Mhm,
culinary staff, like chefs and kitchen assistants. So what we've really had a deeper impact on in the industry over the last year, where we weren't really penetrating into country clubs and golf clubs before. We've really
mhm,
taken on a lot more of those clients. I think um, the money has made more sense for them
mhm,
post-pandemic, for lots of different market reasons. We see people looking to the service experiences and the luxury space. I think people are really deeply understanding that they need quality. They need
mhm,
people that are thinking, that are well presented, that communicate well to both internal staff as well as external clients. That is something that I pride myself on. We have a great way of interviewing that makes sure that as people are coming through our process, we
mhm.
know how people communicate. We understand the knowledge and experience that they bring to the table. We only hire people with experience, so you have that sort of base set of skills.
Do you do
Uh,
any training for your team? Any kind of like personalized training, kind of the Toth event staffing way?
yeah, we do. It's one of those things in the hospitality industry for anyone that's hired frontline, back of the house staff. You know what you are looking for in terms of skill set.
hmm
Um, isn't crazy difficult. None of the things that we do are rocket science. Not to say that they aren't incredibly complex skills, whether you're a chef or whether you're somebody that's front of the house that's boxing a table, putting together an intricate display on a table. These are not things, you don't need to be a rocket scientist, right? It's not, you're not doing like high level math, but you need to have sort of a sense and a vision of the world. I've been through the interviews with, the lady. I was like, well, you have to bring the tie all the way up to the top of the neck. And she was like, I don't understand why that's important, for catering. And I'm like, well, if you can't fix your own tie, first of all, that's a problem. And second of all, it's about display, it's about presentation. So having
Yeah,
that eye for detail
the
is really
detail.
important, right? And so our
Yeah.
interview process, if you can't do that, you can't work, with us on the floor. So it's really the training starts in the interview process. We go,
Hmm.
the expectations are, I think for anybody that's hiring, and hopefully this is helpful to entrepreneurs and people that are hiring vendors and folks that are dealing with staff, the way they show up to the interview,
Hmm.
that's how they're going to show up to the job. If
Yeah.
it's like having a spouse, right? And thinking that you're going to change them.
Hmm.
People are who they are. Now, what you can do to set them up for success is explain those expectations. And a lot
Yeah.
of what we do is these are the expectations. Here they are. They're clearly set. We've given them to you both in audio, right? I've spoken it to you. Now I'm
Hmm.
giving it to you in writing. So when you
Hmm.
show up to the interview, there really is no excuse for not getting this right. And
Hmm.
so that's a big part of our interview process because a lot of people may be disappointed with the applicants that are coming in the door, but did they set clear expectations?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's a big deal because if you're not setting a level playing field
Hmm.
for people, because some people may just know, right? They're
Hmm.
of the culture that maybe matches you, and maybe they, are coming from some sort of home training that is quote unquote perfect, and they line up exactly with your ideals. But a lot of people are coming from different places. I mean, I just
Yeah.
had the
Different
other
walks of
day,
life.
somebody talked to me about, oh, I got advice from somebody about not trying too hard in interviews, that's a bad look. And I can understand that. I remember showing up to an interview and I was in a three-piece suit. And the owner of the company comes in. This was a, medical education meeting planning company. And the owner of the company comes in. Oh, he's too dressed up. We don't want him here. I was like, what? But I mean, the guy was doing me a favor because I like dressing up, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And for anyone that's
Cameron, for
not
those of
not
you that don't know, literally every time you see this man, I wore pink lipstick because of him, because he literally, his signature is that pink shirt and that pink tie, always so put together. So,
Thank you. Thank you. I enjoy it. This is something, but I also understand because, I have my casual days.
mm,
I could come to work and I'm the owner of the company. I could come to work in jeans and
mm,
a sweatshirt if I want to, but I don't because
mm,
I about setting that example.
example.
As I'm hiring staff to interview other staff, I'm hiring them with the understanding, listen, we have to set the tone. You're coming
Mm,
in. We are all about presentation. I don't care even if you're at the back of the house. Clean, white
yeah.
chef coat that fits you, right? This is the way that we're going to show people that we are a professional coming in the door. And if
Yeah.
we do that right, that sets us apart from the competition. That
Hmm.
allows us to get into new client environments. That allows an event planner like yourself to have confidence that no matter what the event is,
Hmm.
whether it's a backyard barbecue, very casual affair, to the castle wedding,
Hmm.
the star-studded debut kind of thing, that the
Yeah.
staff that we have in place are going to look good, even if they're passing through the photo momentarily. They're not, they're gonna
Yeah.
keep that event looking at a level that is right where you want to be.
Awesome. Again, you dropped some good nuggets. I mean, those are nuggets that I think not just people in hospitality, I feel like anyone can kind of take something from
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So, I like to end with this. This is, everybody knows, this is my favorite question. What advice would you give to a new entrepreneur starting out, or it could be someone who has been in business for a while that, is really having a rough time, or maybe thinking about kind of throwing in the towel. Either or, what kind of advice, what could you share with those folks?
Now, those are great questions. So my favorite time on any day
Okay.
is interviewing somebody or being a part of an interview. And now, I have staff that help interview, so I don't get to do it as much. I have to be more focused on the sales. My
Mm-hmm.
favorite time is giving this kind of advice. What's your big picture? Where you want to go? What do you want to do? And so being that mentor is a big deal to me. For anybody that is saying, I want to get to this point, I want to open a business, I want to do this, I want to do XYZ, I'm a young person and I'm trying to figure out school. Talk to people that have been there and done that. Seek
Mm,
out that mentorship. And especially as a young person in any career track, if you just say something along the lines of, I'm really interested in this career, I really respect you, I would love some advice on how to get there. I don't know one professional that
yeah.
wouldn't be excited to answer that question if the person is coming to them and they're genuine, the story matches who they are, the presentation. A lot of times we are afraid to ask for help,
Mm-hmm.
but whether it's asking for career advice or fundraising, if you don't ask, you will not get.
Yep. That literally, and I agree. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people, young people, even older people that are making a transition will say that. And I'm always happy to share. I feel like every entrepreneur is, it's we know what we've gone through, what we continue to go through, and kind of happy to share those nuggets. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I
The-
think it's a part of the maturing process too, because I still, and I don't know how you are with this, but there are some big challenges that I face in my business. And sometimes I'm hesitant, listen, I want to be an approved vendor at this company. I know and I may be hesitant to reach out to a competitor to say, hey, how have you done this? But if you don't ask, you won't receive, right? And so getting over that fear of
Mhm.
judgment, of all the sort of negative stigma of asking an elder or even a competitor for some advice. What's the worst they could say? No. No, I'm
True.
not going to tell you, right? And you won't be any worse for wear. Most oftentimes people are going to be helpful. People, I believe this to my core. People want to be helpful. People want
Mhm.
to do the right thing.
Yeah.
To that point, um, for anybody that's starting out a business, I would be remiss if I didn't mention two amazing books.
Okay.
One is the E-Myth Revisited. If
Oh, I love E-Myth. That's a good one.
I wish I read it when I was starting the business in
Me
2000. I
too.
don't know
We
if I
all
would have
did.
been ready for it, but
We
I,
all,
I wish
yeah,
I read it at the start of the business. And the
yeah.
other book is Profit First by Mike McCallis.
I think
Really
I read
great
that
book
one.
for organizing your finances.
Okay.
It's definitely drastically changed the way I do my accounting and move my
Mhm.
money around. But Profit First, if you're looking to actually, I think everybody gets into business to make a profit and make some
Yeah.
money and be able to move things in the world. And so that's I think deeply important, managing your finances. So profit first.
Yes, I agree. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing those nuggets. Thank you for being with us today. We appreciate everything that you've shared. Wishing you continued success on your journey. And I look forward to seeing you at the next networking event with that pink
Yeah.
shirt and one of your pink ties.
Yeah, please stay tuned for LinkedIn local events if you're
Oh, that
excited
was
about
such a great
networking
event.
in Westchester. Cherie spoke at our last one on January 23rd. From an event planner thing, we should have had the panel mic'd up, so we've corrected that going forward. We'll make sure that people are mic'd up, but our next one is March 5th, the same location at Sam's again anyway, so we're really excited for people to come. Hopefully Charisse will be there and
Mhm.
new friends, old friends, everybody coming together to network for a good cause.
Awesome. Great job with that. You and the team over there. So Pasquale and Maggie, hello to them. And all right, so we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much. This is a
Thanks.
pleasure. I look forward to seeing where 2024 goes.
Yes, same here. Be well.